Alright, so hello everyone, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to check out an augment for the Mutalist Quanta that you can get from Nightwave Season 1 called Bursting Mass. But first we need to talk a little bit about the Mutalist Quanta, otherwise the augment isn't going to make any sense whatsoever. So the Infested, or the Mutalist variant of the Quanta, is a Mastery Rank 2 primary rifle that's completely different to the standard Quanta. The primary fire is fully automatic and fires small infested pustules that have travel time and do pure IPS damage, and the secondary fire fires a mass that you can shoot through for additional critical chance and multiplier. And this is where the Bursting Mass augment comes in, because it makes the mass accumulate 200% of all the damage that you fire through it and then explode, dealing that damage in a 15-meter radius. Additionally, it also makes it so that you can only have one of these masses up at any given time, since firing a new one will detonate the previous one. Now, the setup I decided to run with this is very cheap. It only requires 2 format where you add 2 of these, and may be a little bit confusing when you first look at it, because it's running Serration for damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, then Fast Hands, because the reload time on this is ridiculous. It's 3 seconds, so Fast Hands is definitely nice. Then I have the Bursting Mass augment, followed by Vital Sense for critical damage, as well as Hammer Shot for even more critical damage and some status chance, and I topped it off with Malignant Force and High Voltage for corrosive damage and even more status. Now, the reason I'm scaling crit with this setup is because, as I've said already, you get extra crit stats by shooting through the mass, which is ultimately what you want to do with this weapon, regardless of whether you're running the Bursting Mass augment or not. It just adds too much damage for you not to do it. And that actually lets the weapon do some decent damage, even though the stats on it aren't that great. Now, the idea with this augment, I think, is to just fire the mass, shoot through it, and then melee it towards enemies and detonate it. Because that's pretty much the only way to make it work versus enemies that like to stay at range, so the majority of the Grenier, the Corpus, and the Corrupted. Otherwise, it's only going to be useful against the Infested, since they like to swarm you at all times. And that's where we run into a pretty big problem, not with the augment per se, but more with the Infested Mass mechanic. Because meleeing the Infested Mass and having it fly in the direction you actually want to is almost impossible. So Infested it is then? Well, not quite, because while it is definitely better versus the Infested and you can actually see it work and you can kill stuff with it, there is another problem, and it's actually more prevalent versus the Infested. You're not the only one that can melee the Infested Mass away. The enemies can do it too, so if you do the sensible thing and you either stand inside the mass so you can shoot anywhere, or you stand right behind it so the effective coverage of the mass is as big as it can be, the enemies can actually melee it away from you. Now granted, they don't usually melee it far enough away so that it doesn't hit them anymore, so it will cover the general area you want it to, but it's still annoying. And finally we have the damage of the final explosion, which can actually be really good. If you stack this properly, you can do a lot of damage with this. But even with that, I still wouldn't recommend this mod under any circumstances. You're better off just running another mod and adding more damage to the Quanta itself. And that really sucks, because the idea behind this mod is really nice. I like it. I want more mods like this. It's the fault of the Infested Mass mechanic. That's what makes this mod not good. It actually makes the weapon worse, for me at least, because I can have fun with the Mutalist Quanta, running around, popping the mass and then shooting through it for the bonus damage. That's a fun interaction. But as soon as I start to try and position it so that I can do damage with it or melee it to enemies, that's where the fun stops and frustration starts. So unless they improve the handling of the Infested Mass and make it so that you can actually melee it in a direction you want to, rather than it flying all over the place, I don't think it's worth running the mod, and you would be better off just running another damage mod and use the Infested Mass as it was originally intended to just multiply your crits. Now, I'm not saying that it's the worst thing in the world, because it's not. You can make it work versus the Infested, and it's kind of alright in defense and interception missions. But for me, a mod that adds an annoying to deal with mechanic is not something that I'm going to use. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!